What do I do if I'm being harassed, bullied, or stalked online? Hi, everyone. Leo Notenboom here for askleo.com. Normally, this is where I would quote an original question, but this topic appears in so many different guises and in so many different ways that quoting a single question would represent only a very small slice of what is essentially a much, much larger issue. Cyberbullying, or online harassment, is frighteningly common. Those most at risk appear to be children and individuals who have been in abusive relationships. But honestly, it can happen to anyone. The questions I get most often are, isn't it illegal? How do I find out who's responsible? How do I make them stop? And then how do I get back at them? I'm going to tackle each of those specifically and a couple more. Isn't it illegal? Okay, so I need to remind you, of course, that I'm neither a lawyer nor am I a law enforcement professional. I can't give legal advice, and none of this should be taken as such. If you need legal advice, seek out an attorney or reach out to one of the many organizations that are set up to help victims of domestic violence in your area. One problem with this question is that the answer varies, sometimes dramatically, from location to location. Some activities are illegal in some jurisdictions and acceptable in others. The only way to know which laws apply to your situation is to contact an attorney or your local law enforcement. You're going to find that I'm going to be saying that a lot in this video. There are, of course, a couple of generalizations or examples that might be instructive. For example, sexual exploitation of children is pretty clear. Now, while the definition of exploitation might be unclear in some cases and the legal definition of child might vary, authorities are typically pretty clear on its being illegal. At the other end of the spectrum, though, simple password theft, for example, might not be illegal. Accessing your account and reading your email without your permission might be legal. Most would consider it to be wrong and rude and offensive and perhaps immoral. But again, depending on your local laws, it may or may not be an illegal offense. What they do once they have your password, again, may or may not be illegal. For example, hacking into your account to threaten people in your address book might be illegal, but simply annoying people in your address book might not be. It's a huge gray area. Unless things are obviously illegal, again, like sexual predation, you may not be able to assume what is or is not a violation of your local laws. Again, you'll need to ask some local authority. How do I find out who's responsible? You don't. This is perhaps the most common harassment-related question I get. People who are being harassed or threatened anonymously, they want to find out who's doing it. I get it. The most common specific question I get relates to IP addresses. People believe that once they have an IP address, they can identify the individual. No, it is nowhere near that simple. Working on your own, your best bet is to look for all the clues relating to the situation. Sure, perhaps an IP address matches an IP address in an email you got from someone you know. That's not a guarantee that it's the same person, but it's a clue. So are things like who might be having a problem with you in the real world, who's been causing you grief at work or in school, or who you just broke up with. None of that can prove anything, but it can build a case you can then take to the proper authorities. You cannot definitively trace the source of an email or any other internet connection unless the offender slipped up and made it obvious in non-technical ways. If a law has been broken, law enforcement might be able to. So some time ago, I spoke to Detective Melinda Wilson of the Seattle Police Department and their Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, who indicated that she had served as many as 9 different warrants to follow the trail of one of her suspects. This brings us to another point. Police may not always be able to help. Detective Wilson's case likely involved a crime against a child, as that's the specialty. That's a priority and certainly justifies the time and the effort to locate the criminal and prosecute the crime. Someone hacking into your email account? Well, don't take it personally, but that's probably not as important. To quote Detective Wilson, often, if no crime other than hacking is done, the best advice is going to be start over with a new account. The abilities and resources available to your local law enforcement dictate what's possible and what's reasonable to expect when it comes to tracking down your offender. How do I make them stop? Again, if you believe a crime may have been committed, contact your local law enforcement. If the offender is in school or at work and using school or work resources, the school or workplace may have additional options. Certain forms of harassment may not be illegal, but may still be against school rules and regulations. The organization may be able to take action on your behalf and likely have a better picture of what warrants involving law enforcement. In lieu of support from law enforcement or other authorities, your options are really limited. Some ideas include, if you're receiving harassing email at a particular email address, close that account and open a new one. If your email account has been stolen and you no longer have access to it, create a new account and let your contacts know to ignore the old one. If you're getting harassing chat messages, close the account and begin a new one. Yep, all of these are the cyber equivalent of changing your phone number to an unlisted one or even moving to avoid harassment. As in real-world examples, make sure only people you trust have your new information. And yeah, to put it bluntly, it sucks. But the fact is, unless some law has been broken, it is not illegal to be an annoying pain in the neck. And even if a law has been broken, the authorities may not even have the resources to assist sufficiently. How do I get back at them? You don't. This, too, is a common question. People feel that they have been violated and they want to get revenge. Consider this fact. How do I hack into someone's account is a very popular askleo article. My theory is that it's mostly children attempting to figure out how to get revenge on someone who's bullied or harassed them, online or off. Many of the comments on that article, including most of the comments you don't see because they are themselves abusive and have been removed, would seem to bear this out. Bypassing the authorities and attempting to exact revenge can only do more harm than good and rarely resolves anything. At best, you'll only waste time. More likely, you'll antagonize your target into taking harsher actions against you. In the worst case, you might find yourself in violation of law and, as a result, face harsher penalties than the person harassing you. Don't do it. Don't even try. It is just not worth it. Involve the authorities, law enforcement, school officials, ISPs, whatever, if you can, and let them do their jobs. If they can't help, then by far it is safest to just let it go, if at all possible. How do I prevent all this in the first place? Frequently, this is asked in the context of parents wanting to keep their children safe, but most of the rules apply to us all. Be the parent. This is by far the toughest, but it means understanding what's appropriate for your children and being aware of, perhaps even monitoring what they're doing online. It means setting rules with consequences, sticking to them, and taking care to make sure your children understand what it means to be safe on the internet. Be realistic. Children are more likely to be affected by what I'd call peer-to-peer bullying than they are to be approached by an adult for illicit purposes. It doesn't mean that sexual predation doesn't happen. It clearly does. But what's much more likely is that your child will be bullied by another child. Don't ignore the latter, because the former is so much more heinous and gets more press. Choose strong passwords. Yep, strong passwords are hard to remember, but that's what makes them strong. The easier they are to remember, the easier they are to guess. Most individual account theft is simply someone guessing your password with no special technology or techniques necessary. Don't share your password with anyone. The one exception is that children should probably be required to share their password with their responsible parents. The scenario I see repeated over and over with both children and adults is this. Someone shares an account password with a trusted friend, and sometime later, the friendship ends. Not infrequent that the former friend then does serious damage before the account misuse is detected. Don't publish personal information publicly. Google yourself. You may be amazed at what you find. Don't publish information publicly in news groups, public forums, social media, and other places where anyone can see. Even the smallest bit of personal information here and there can be used by a savvy stalker. Assume your worst enemy is trying to find you, and every little piece of information you leave online is helping them. Don't assume you know someone you've never actually met. On the internet, it's easy to appear to be something or someone you're not. Only once you've actually met them, or perhaps when someone else you know, again, someone you've met, has met them face to face, can you assume that you even have a clue about who it is you're talking to. Learn the technology. Now, you don't have to know how a car's engine works to drive safely, but you do have to know how to drive and the rules of the road. The same is true for the internet. Take the time to learn about your computer, the internet, and the sites and services you use most often. The better educated you are about these things, the safer you'll be. Where can I get help? I attended a presentation on internet safety for children, which is where I met Detective Wilson. The presentation covered some of what I've mentioned here and a lot more. If you have the opportunity to attend something similar in your area, I strongly recommend it as a starting point. Remember, the rules and the cautions apply to everyone, not just children. Adults can learn a lot about the potential risks and the steps to stay safe, even by attending a presentation aimed at keeping the kids safe. If nothing else, it's a good place to ask questions, and you'll get references to the local agencies and support organizations that can help you learn more or deal with any immediate issues. Additional resources include local law enforcement, your first place to turn if you believe that a crime has been committed. Use the cyber tip line on the web or via phone to report or learn more about preventing sexual exploitation of children. Your local ISP. I know this can be spotty depending on the service you use or the scenario involved, but your ISP can occasionally be a source not only for action, but for guidance on where to go next. Online resources like netsmarts.org from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. I need to talk briefly about paranoia. After doing this for over 2 decades, I've heard from all kinds of people in all kinds of situations. The most common are those with real concerns and tangible issues confirming their situation. I also hear from what, for lack of a better term, I can only call the paranoid. Now, it would be easy to write off perceived paranoia as being overly concerned about nothing, but that's rarely, if ever, the case. Regardless of the specifics, the concerns are to them very real and very frightening. Unfortunately, almost any unexpected behavior on a computer, a mobile device, online accounts, and more is often taken as proof that something sinister is afoot. The reality is that unexpected behavior almost always has a more mundane, less threatening explanation. Almost always. And that's where it gets complicated. There's always a chance that the issues are real and the concern is warranted. Now, to be clear, I cannot help in these situations. My advice is always to start with trusted local help. That can be technical assistance from local resources, relying on trustworthy family or friends, or even local support organizations for the type of harassment you might be experiencing. This is almost always a case where in-person assistance is required to get to the root of any issues and perhaps engage the appropriate local authorities or other sources of help as warranted. Bottom line, the internet is a wonderful, wonderful place. I truly believe it is. It's opened doors and made so much information and opportunity available to individuals planet-wide that I just can't imagine a world without it. But it also opens up doors of opportunities for the darker elements in society. Like any tool, it becomes our responsibility to use it wisely, protecting our loved ones and ourselves. The key is simple: education. Learn about the tools, about opportunities available, and about your computer, its software, and its abilities. Then pass on what you've learned to others. For updates, for comments, for links related to this topic and more, visit askleo.com/15569. I'm Leo Notenboom, and this is askleo.com. Thanks for watching.